Welcome to our countdown of history's top 10 torture fails, where we go from bad to absolutely bonkers. Number 10. The Iron Maiden. The Iron Maiden, a medieval equivalent of a bad blind date with an iron closet. Picture this, a towering cabinet decked out with spikes like an overzealous punk rocker's jacket. The idea was to snugly fit a person inside, which sounds like the world's worst hug. Now, here's the catch. Those spikes. More of a scare tactic than a poking reality. Historians have a bit of a chuckle, thinking it might have been more of a horror prop than a daily torturing device. Imagine the scene. A medieval dungeon, a prisoner brought in. The doors of this spiky sarcophagus swing open dramatically. The prisoner's eyes go wide, heart racing, and then nothing. Because, let's face it, if you actually used it, you'd have a mess. And who wants to clean spike residue in the Dark Ages? So, the Iron Maiden, less a tool of torture, more a medieval scarecrow with an iron twist. Its real effect? Probably a lot of wide eyes and whispered, "No way, is that thing real?" in the dungeons. Number 9. Chinese water torture. Picture this, a method so devilishly simple yet maddeningly frustrating, known as the Chinese water torture. Here the victim is tied down and water droplets, yes, just plain, innocent water, are dropped continuously onto the center of their forehead. At first, it sounds like a spa treatment gone wrong, or perhaps an odd way to test if your plumbing is leak-free. But oh, the devil is in the droplets. As each drop falls, it's like Mother Nature herself is playing a drum solo right on your noggin. Drip, drip, drip. It's the Chinese water torture's way of saying, let's turn that brain into a mushy puddle of confusion. The mind, initially unfazed, soon starts to dance to the rhythm of the relentless droplets. Thoughts become as scattered as a deck of cards in a tornado. And the information extraction? More often than not, the only valuable revelations were along the lines of, yes, water is indeed wet, or I now empathize with a leaky faucet. This method, though seemingly mellow, was a mental marathon with no finish line in sight. It turned tough nuts into soggy walnuts, yet rarely cracked them open to reveal any secrets of substance. Number 8. The Heretics Fork. Think about this, the Heretics Fork, a gadget that sounds more like a failed medieval kitchen utensil than a torture device. It's a fork-like contraption that's snugly fitted between your chin and chest. Now imagine trying to nod, shake your head, or even gulp. Nope, not happening. This bizarre neck brace from the Dark Ages was supposed to keep victims from moving their head, but let's be real, it turned them into human bobbleheads with no bubble. The idea was to keep prisoners still and compliant during interrogations, but here's the kicker. It was so excruciatingly painful that victims couldn't focus on anything, let alone spill their deepest, darkest secrets. They were more likely to ponder over the inventor's odd fascination with forks. In the end, it was like trying to have a serious conversation with someone wearing an oversized, spiky necktie. Not very effective for getting truthful answers, but certainly a conversation starter about medieval fashion disasters. Number 7. The Oubliette. Welcome to the Oubliette, the medieval world's answer to out of sight, out of mind. Picture this, a dungeon so obscure and hidden, even the jailers forgot it existed. Designed for long-term guests, these cozy, narrow accommodations offered the unique experience of being completely forgotten, a real selling point for those seeking solitude. Now let's talk about the human impact. Imagine being sent to a room, and then everyone, including the person who sent you there, just forgets about you. The result? Prisoners became masters of self-reflection, engaging in deep philosophical debates with the walls, which were admittedly terrible conversationalists. Some might have even achieved enlightenment, pondering the mysteries of life, like, why is it called a dungeon and not a fun geon? Or, what did I come in here for again? Ironically, this method of forgetting the prisoner meant forgetting to interrogate them too, making the whole exercise as effective as trying to catch clouds with a net. In the end, the only thing extracted was the realization that maybe, just maybe, writing down where you put people isn't such a bad idea after all. Number 6. The sweating. Imagine stepping back in time to the world's most bewildering interrogation room, the sauna of silliness. Here, medieval torturers, clearly missing a few chapters in their How to Torture handbook, stand befuddled outside a sealed room cranked up to sun surface levels of heat. Their grand plan? Sweat the secrets out of their victims. However, they overlooked one tiny detail. It's hard to extract confessions from someone who's more dehydrated than a raisin in the Sahara. Instead of sinister revelations, these heat-hazed captives mumbled about fantastical mirages, leaving the torturers with nothing but nonsense about magical creatures and serenading kitchenware. The victims, deliriously dazed, couldn't distinguish between espionage and a pastry. So, what was intended to be a fearsome chamber of secrets turned into a makeshift sauna, turning up the heat on the torturers' embarrassment, while the victims just simmered in their own steamy confusion. Number 5. The Judas Cradle. Imagine, if you will, a time when the height of interrogation technique was quite literally a pointy pyramid, known as the Judas Cradle. Here's how this bizarre contraption worked. The unfortunate soul, deemed worthy of such attention, was hoisted atop this wooden wonder right on the pointy bit. The idea was simple: sit there, on the apex of agony, and spill your secrets. But here's the twist in this medieval tale of woe. The Judas Cradle was about as effective as using a chocolate teapot. Why? Because the poor folks perched precariously on this peak of pain were more likely to meet their maker than to murmur any meaningful confessions. Picture this: a victim, suspended in a balancing act worthy of a circus, thinking less about divulging deep, dark secrets, and more about the unspeakable discomfort of their decidedly delicate situation. So, there you have it. The Judas Cradle, a historical example of how not to extract information unless your goal was to perfect the art of pointless punishment. It's a tale of sharp ends, sharper discomfort, and the bluntest of interrogation outcomes. Number 4. Scolds Bridal. In the gossipy lanes of 16th and 17th century England, they unveiled the Scolds Bridal, a metallic masterpiece designed to hush the chatty Cathies. Picture this: a metal headgear that could give any knight's helmet a run for its money, complete with a mouthpiece that wasn't just for show. The goal? To silence the town gossips. But oh, how it backfired. You see, while the wearer couldn't speak, it didn't stop the rumor mill. In fact, it fueled it. Each clank of the bridle was like a medieval tweet, sparking more curiosity. What did she say? Who did she offend? The questions buzzed like bees around a honeypot. The irony? The Scolds Bridle became the town's latest gossip topic. This contraption, far from stifling stories, became a walking, non-talking advertisement for the latest juicy tales. The wearer, now a silent celebrity, found their social calendar busier than ever. Who knew a piece of metal could be so counterproductive? In the end, the Scolds Bridle didn't just fail to stop gossip, it became the town's most gossiped about accessory. Number 3. The Spanish Donkey. Imagine, if you will, the Spanish donkey. A wooden or iron triangle of terror, a medieval mockery of a comfortable seat. Victims were placed atop this precarious perch, as naked as the day they were born, with the added flair of weights tethered to their feet. The idea was to extract confessions, but let's face it, the only thing it effectively extracted was a chorus of "ouch!" And who thought of this ridiculousness? This device was less an instrument of interrogation and more a bizarre balancing act. Picture a most unfortunate soul trying to maintain composure while seated on the peak of discomfort. The weights, a whimsical addition, ensured that staying atop this triangular titan of torture was a feat as likely as teaching a fish to tap dance. In the end, the Spanish donkey proved to be more lethal than useful. It turned out that people were far too preoccupied with their precarious and painful position to offer any useful information. Who could have guessed that balancing on a triangle of doom wasn't conducive to clear thinking? The Spanish Donkey, a chapter in the book of historical hijinks that reminds us that sometimes the old ways of doing things were not just cruel, but comically convoluted. Number 2. The strappado. Picture this. You're in the clutches of what could only be described as history's most impractical torturers. Their grand scheme for extracting information? The strappado, or as it should have been called, the Renaissance's most unfortunate attempt at human puppetry. Victims' hands were tied behind their backs and then hoisted aloft as if they were flags on a particularly breezy day. Expectations were high confessions, secrets, Or maybe a long-lost family recipe? The reality? A symphony of groans and groans alone, as the unfortunate souls dangled awkwardly. By the time they were lowered back to earth, they were more bewildered than a cat in a dog show. Asking them to spill any beans was like expecting a dazed parrot to recite Shakespeare. The strappado was less an interrogation technique and more an accidental venture into creating the world's least effective acrobats. It turned potential informants into baffled, sore beings who were less inclined to reveal secrets and more concerned about whether they had just unwittingly auditioned for flying fiascos of the Middle Ages. Number 1. Tickling as torture. In the ancient torture chambers of China and the drafty dungeons of medieval Europe, tickling wasn't just for child's play. Imagine a fearsome torturer, armed not with whips or chains, but with the most fearsome weapon of all, a feather. Yes, the relentless tickling, often thought to be the stuff of nursery rhymes, was actually a bizarre tool of the trade. Victims faced the tickle terror, where they were strapped down and subjected to non-stop, merciless tickling. But here's the twist. Instead of extracting secrets, it often led to uncontrollable giggling fits, snorts, and the occasional embarrassing snicker snort. The torturers, expecting to break the will of their captives, were instead left bewildered by the bouts of laughter. Rather than yielding useful information, they often found themselves joining in the laughter or scratching their heads in confusion. In the end, the tickling torture proved to be more of a comedy routine than an effective interrogation method. The ticklers, hoping for tears of defeat, were instead met with tears of hysterical laughter. As it turns out, the only thing they managed to extract was a good joke for the next tavern meetup, and there you have it. The most ineffective torture practices ever, proving that sometimes history's biggest tortures were actually its biggest jokes. Tune in next time for more historical hilarity.